Yes, guys, what's going on? Welcome to AdamMcKola TV. We are back for another preview. The games are coming thick and fast, and it's not the Premier League football anymore. It's FA Cup action against Norwich, who are sitting bottom of the league. United have got Norwich. I've got Jay and Joe with me, occasionally known as the Master Debaters, and we're back to have a chat. How you doing, boys? United winning and all that? Martial with a hat-trick?
Mate, amazing, isn't it? I'm not doing as well as you are. It's getting to well-bet levels with Martial. When Martial scores now, I think of you.
Yeah, I do. As soon as he got the hat trick out, honestly, you were the first person I thought of. I was like, he's gonna love this.
I remember when I went to Singapore and it was match day and we went into the pub in Singapore. The people in there recognized me and they were like, AdamMcKola. And as recognition of me, they started singing the Marshall song.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a little bit weird. Like that's become a thing that people know around the world. This guy's a little bit weird. I wonder if Tony knows I'm a little bit weird.
Oh, I bet he does. He might do.
Down to part 2 coming soon. But yeah, what's going on? What did you make of that, boys? Let's get straight stuck into it. Happy?
Yeah, very. I thought they were really good. I thought pretty much everywhere on the pitch, United looked good. Could have expected a little bit more maybe from a couple of positions, but generally, I think we made Sheffield United look really poor. I'm wary when people blame the team that got beaten for being bad as a way to kind of reduce the praise given to the team that won. I never like it when teams do that against United. I don't like it when they do it in United's favour either. I think if you limit a team to 0.13 expected goals and you dominate possession, dominate the ball, make loads of chances and win the game comfortably, I think you should give most of the credit to the team that did that. And I think United did that really well yesterday. And sort of expanded on the glimpses we saw against Spurs of that fluidity in midfield and in attack, and actually got some goals at the end of it instead this time.
Jay, what do you make of it? I know we spoke on the fan cams, but the dust has settled a bit now.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I agree with what Joe was saying. Part of the issue with Ole hasn't been against the bigger teams. It's against the sort of mid-table teams where we've not turned up or we've made it difficult for ourselves and you've had lackluster performances. You know, I don't need to go into all the details. We know the results that haven't been good enough. And that was one of those games where in the past we might have struggled or we might have ended up getting a 0-0 or whatever, or just scraping a win and more questions being asked, sorry. But it was just, like you say, comprehensive. And when you look at that entire front six, from Matic onwards, was outstanding. I don't think there was a poor performance there. Even the ones where you can say had a quieter game in inverted commas still played well. And that's, we mentioned it after the game. That's like United of old, that where even if Scholes or whatever was having a poor game by his standards, it would still be a good game. And that's what we saw yesterday. So, Bruno's had better games, but he still played well. Pogba played really well. And like even someone like Mason Greenwood, who was quieter, still played his part. So that's what you want to see. You want to see a United team that, even if they're not reaching top gear, is still capable of beating the likes of Sheffield United, and that's what we did. So yeah, can't complain for once.
On the 13-game unbeaten run, we've won 9 of those games, scored 33 goals, conceded 3, 10 clean sheets. We've played City twice, Chelsea, Tottenham, Wolves, Sheffield United. We've only had Pogba and Rashford available for 2 of those games. So there's a lot of positive signs for United at the moment. And still, I get this feeling that I can't get carried away. Like, do you feel the same? Does it or do you feel like we're finally starting to see the Man United that is to come in the future under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer?
I definitely feel like we can't get carried away. I feel it's like the longer you've been hurt, the longer it takes for you to trust again, isn't it? Like we've had 7 years of not knowing, of good runs. The 16-17 run that is being touted now as the sort of equal to this unbeaten run that we're currently on. So we have done this before, let's not forget. And that didn't end in much other than, I think we got Europa League that season. But, you know what I mean? It's not like this isn't the first time we've done this. But I would say it is the first time that we've done this with players that seem like they're happy and players that seem like they've got a long-term future at United, rather than doing it with the likes of Ashley Young and Zlatan and people like that in the squad. It seems like we've got a bit more of a future about us, and Solskjaer again has proven himself down the years to have a loyalty and a genuine interest to Man United. Whereas with Mourinho, any joy that you have always has that sort of dark side of the moon dread of he's not going to be here in 3 years, no matter how good this is. So I think there's definitely a different optimism to the current team. And like I said, this is only the first couple of games of actually having the full strength version of this team as well. So hopefully there's still more to come.
Anthony Martial, Marcus Rashford are both now on 19 goals. Obviously, Martial grabbed all the headlines with the hat trick. Did I say he scored a hat trick?
No, you've not mentioned it.
I'm not sure.
But Martial did.
That. Yeah, he did.
Oh, I missed that.
He got a hat trick.
I missed that.
First United hat trick since Robbie Van Persie against
Really?
Aston Villa.
I didn't know that. Didn't know about that stat either. That's the new one.
Well, blow me down. Someone should have mentioned that.
And also, if Anthony Martial and Rashford score as expected, at least one more goal and get to 20, it will be the first time since 2010-11 that United have had two players score 20 goals in one campaign since Dimitar Berbatov and Javier Hernandez did it in 2011. So it's also been a long time since that happened. And do you feel, Ole needs to get a little bit more credit for the way these strikers are performing? Because, as I said, we know, Martial, Romario scored a hat trick, but Rashford had 2 assists as well. Very much easily could have had 2 goals himself. Ole's seemed to work something with these strikers, hasn't he?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you got to give him credit because let's not forget when Ole came in, our highest paid player and our most expensive striker was Romelu Lukaku and Alexis Sanchez. And almost immediately, he made it clear that he didn't fancy either of them and that his focus was going to be on Martial and Rashford. Now, that wasn't the obvious thing to do. The obvious thing to do would have been to stick with Lukaku or to give Sanchez a second chance. And he obviously, that was not what he wanted to do, as Joe's alluded to. He saw it more of a looking long-term. What's benefiting United is Martial and Rashford. And we've seen how Rashford's been moved around a little bit and then has finally settled into that place on the left-hand side. And Martial's been used down the middle. Now, lots of people will question him, can Martial play down the middle? But the stats have shown, you've just proven it. That's put that argument to bed because he's banging in goals every week. He's getting assists. He's thriving off the service he's getting as well. He's making those runs. He was getting criticised earlier on in the season for not making certain runs. But where was the service coming from? With Pereira or Lingard or whoever finding those balls and finding them runs? No, they weren't. And now you've got Pogba back in the team. You've got Bruno, who are giving these strikers or these attackers the service they deserve. They're thriving off it. So, yeah, I think you've got to give Ole credit. Just as you criticise him when we don't get the results you want, you've got to give him praise when we do get the results and you do get the players performing at a high level. And both of those players are having the best ever seasons and playing well together for a reason. And that's the manager's faith in them and manager finding a system that works for them as well. Because let's not forget, a year, 6 months ago, people were questioning both of them. People were saying, "Oh, is Martial, would he get into the City team?" Or, Rashford, when we give him a new deal, is he good enough? Not us lot, I hasten to add, but some people were. So, yeah, I'm 100% believe that Ole deserves credit for that because he stuck with him and found a system that suits both of them.
What do you reckon, John?
Yeah, Martial as well is inching toward that. One of the criticisms he's always had is, one of the things is he looks a bit disinterested. He doesn't want to make those difficult runs. He doesn't quite get in those positions to score the goals that are a bit scrappy and a bit ugly or that kind of thing. He got 2 of them yesterday. The first one in particular was, I think, a brilliant finish. The speed and the reactions he had to show to put that in the back of the net with his wrong foot as well, if he has got a wrong foot, being his left foot. And he's also inching toward the point of the goal, 20 goals. I think if he gets 25 goals, you can almost say, well, even if he doesn't do much else, he's getting enough goals to justify his position in the squad, regardless of the other stuff, which I actually think he does bring still. But yeah, he's inching towards that kind of number 9, gets enough goals to justify his place regardless, and yet he still is so good on the ball, and he still is good at bringing other people into play. So if you can get those numbers up, I think it's going to be, difficult to say anything other than it's been a really good season for both of them and for Solskjaer, like you said, Jay.
Most definitely, and I think it's both of their best ever campaigns in terms of goal scoring output. That alone says a lot. But I think when you look at the performances that we're getting from both of them, Marcus Rashford yesterday, his finishing was off, but I thought his all-round play, some of the passes that he was picking out, one of them in particular to Luke Shaw, I was really impressed with. It was probably a basic pass, but just putting the weight on the pass for Luke Shaw to get him behind the fullback, not have to do nothing really apart from make the run. I thought he showed some intelligent play and some of the tricks and flicks that they were beginning to show with Bruno and Pogba and all those. It's exciting, especially when you think they're not even match fit and they've hardly played any games together. So if we can use this end of the season, yes, we want to target top 4 and we want to win as many trophies as possible. But if we can use it as a period to kind of get these guys gelling for next season, we've got a lot to look forward to. And I think maybe then our objectives are even changed for next season if this, next few months goes well for United. It's a big period, and with the summer transfer window coming up. So yeah, I'm delighted with what Ollie's doing with those two boys, and I was delighted with Martial's comments after as well, when he was talking about there's no competition, they just both want to win, and especially when you consider they're both going to be on the pitch together more often than not. It's not like they're both playing each other's position. They don't need to battle it out. Of course, friendly, competition's good, but at the same time, it's good to see they've got that attitude. Talking about the game itself, we saw on the 80th minute, we made 5 substitutes. And first of all, the players that came on, Pereira, Mata, McTominay, Fred, and Igalo, I think. No, is that right? No, sorry, James instead of Fred. Daniel James instead of Fred. So those were the players that came on. Now, those players were starting regularly for United, so it shows already our depth's improved. But did those late substitutes show that maybe Ollie is going to bring the changes in this game against Norwich? And should we?
What do you mean, like he was resting players sort of thing? He was taking
because he seemed to think, well, I can play these like for 80 minutes because they might not be involved on the weekend.
Right.
From the start. So McTominay and Fred, who didn't play, surely they're probably going to come in then. So did it look like to you he was saving players and maybe he's going to rotate the team completely for the cups like we have seen him do previously? Because then we've got Brighton hot on the heels of Norwich.
Yeah, I think we've got a squad now where you can rest a few players. Like, you can take out a few players, but there's one or two that I'd always start. Like, for me, I'd always start one of Bruno or Pogba, even for this game. I know we'll get into our starting 11s later, but I wouldn't drop both of them, for example. I wouldn't drop both Martial and Rashford. I'd play at least one of them. I know we've got a Gallo, and I know we've got Dan James and Mason Greenwood. I know he played Mason Greenwood, but we've got different options. But I'd at least start one of Martial and Rashford. I think those players I've mentioned, you've always got to play one of them. But we have got strength in depth. You look defensively. When we were doing our starting 11s for the Sheffield United game, we all picked different defenders who didn't feature. The likes of Brandon Williams, the likes of Eric Bailly. You've got players that can come in there in defence. We've all mentioned. You mentioned there you've got Fred and McTominay. So there's different options. I just think, I know the world class is bandied about, but you look at Pogba and Bruno, and potentially Rashford and Martial, they are a cut above everyone else, and they are those types of players that can make things happen. So I don't really think you can afford to drop more than 2 of them, personally. And I think that might have been what he was thinking in his substitutions.
What do you reckon, Joe?
Yeah, I do agree. I also just think there was a real imperative and a necessity to win the game yesterday. And at 2-0, you're only ever a goal away from an absolute horrific ending to a match, aren't you? If we'd have brought a few players off earlier on, when it was only 2-0 up, you take Pogba off, you take Martial off. Next thing you know, they've snuck a goal. The last 15 minutes are hell. So I think maybe there were part of it was an eye for the Norwich game. But as Jay said before, I think we've got a deep enough squad that even without rotating too much within the game against Sheffield United, we have options all over the pitch to bring in. But I personally think the main reason that we waited so long for the subs was because it was only 2-0. And it was such a big game to win. We really couldn't afford to drop points in 2 games in a row. And if we'd have lost, which even at 2-0 would have been unlikely, but if it had been a draw, Sheffield United were only 2 points behind us. Wolves would have gone ahead of us. Arsenal would have been able to go within, I think, 2 points of us. So it was a huge game, and mostly I think the 80th minute substitutions were just to make sure we won.
I hear. How important is the FA Cup? Or do you think it's important for us this season, or is it a bonus? Should we be maybe resting players with the Premier League in mind or Brighton in mind?
I mean, it's weird because the Europa comes at the end of the season, doesn't it, this year? So you don't know
August.
You don't know whether that's going to be your route into the Champions League. So if we're already in the Champions League, I wouldn't say the Europa's as important. Personally, I love the FA Cup. It's some of my favourite memories of FA Cup games and trips to Wembley and things like that. But I think the priority has to be getting into the Champions League. And right now, I know it's not going to be easy, but we've got the chance to do that in the league. I think we can do it in the league. So I think that has to be the focus. So if you're talking in terms of what should be priority, for me, it should be the league. I don't want to go into the Europa needing that to get into the Champions League. We did it under Jose, but that was sort of, he did that the wrong way round, and he started resting players in January that season in the league and just completely went for Europa. And we got a little bit lucky sort of on our route to the final, especially against Celta Vigo. So you don't want to be in that situation again where you lose one game and that is it. You're not getting Champions League football next season. So that has to be a priority. Yeah. But I think, like I said earlier, we've got a squad where we don't necessarily have to choose one or the other. We can still, I think we can fight on three fronts. Yes, you're going to have to make something a priority, but we've got enough strength in depth to put decent teams out in all competitions.
Yeah, I like the FA Cup as well. And also, you think of the Champions League and prioritising just not even winning the Champions League. Let's not forget, it's just qualifying for the Champions League over a trophy. I don't understand it personally. Obviously, if especially since we've got this second sort of backup parachute of the Champions League, of the Europa League, sorry, as a way to get into the Champions League. I always think there is part of me that always thinks that this whole thing of getting into the Champions League is almost this overrated sort of look to the future way of doing things, where really you look at who wins the Champions League, and I'm not saying that if we got into it we couldn't win it next season, but when's the last time there was a surprising winner of the Champions League? It was Liverpool, who had also got 95 points in the league, then it was Real Madrid 3 years in a row, then it was Barcelona, then it was Bayern Munich, then it was Chelsea maybe was the last time, and that was nearly 10 years ago now. So really, just because you sneak into the Champions League by the scruff of your, by the skin of your teeth, should I say, I would always prioritise actually winning a trophy over putting ourselves at a kind of low percentage chance of winning a tournament that doesn't end for another 12 months. So I would say play the best team in the league and play also just as good a team, or maybe again, I know that it's easy to say these things, and the world is such that we do tend to prioritise the Champions League because it means more than just a trophy. It's sponsorship money, it's contracts for certain players, it's the chance to bring better players in. But for me, winning a trophy, especially for Solskjaer, who has been, the way he's been treated by our fans and opposition fans throughout his time and given no hope, and the thing I think he wants to instill more than anything at United is this is a team where we win stuff. And I think if you can start that by winning the FA Cup this year, then I think he would take that, and I would take that.
I think as well, we are one of the teams that possibly this coronavirus situation could have benefited more than anybody. Not only, all right, financially we've lost a bit of money, but purely football-wise, when you look at it in footballing terms, we've been allowed to kind of settle down, get Rashford and Pogba back fit. It's almost kind of made the decision for Paul Pogba to stay for us, which is great. But also, we've kind of had this time to rest, get our team together. And the Europa League coming straight after the domestic campaign, I think, almost means Ollie's probably thinking, this is amazing. I can focus on this domestic campaign. I can go, maybe rest a few players in the FA Cup, but still take it seriously because we're not juggling that European campaign. And then once all that's done, we can focus on the Europa League, which is, one game against LASK. Regardless of what happens in that, we're going through. And then the next phases after that are all one round. So it's kind of falling into place for us almost to challenge on all three fronts. And I say three fronts. I know top four is not a trophy, but it's a target and it's an objective. And I think if you get that as well, going into the Europa League, it takes the pressure off, and it probably brings out another level in performance for you.
If you look toward the end of the season as well, let's say we are either 6 points. Let's say with 3 games to go, we're sort of 6 points behind Chelsea, and the chances of getting top 4 are very slim. Then you can maybe to play for the Europa League. But like I said, because it's one, then the next, we'll know. We'll have a much better idea of who needs resting, who can be allowed to be rested before that game, rather than having to juggle what the priority is when you don't know the result of the other one. So it works perfectly for United.
All right, let's go into teams. Jay, you got your team?
Yeah, I'll go with give Romero a start at the back and goal. I know there was question marks about De Gea. He didn't really have anything to do against Sheffield United. I don't think this is going to be anything other than a sort of a chance for Romero to have a game because it's the FA Cup. I'm not saying that De Gea needs dropping or anything like that. It's just because it's a cup game and to give Romero a bit of a run out in the cup, which Ole likes to do. I'll go for a 4-2-3-1. So along the back, I'll go with Brandon Williams at left back. He's not had much of a look in yet, so I think it's a good opportunity for him to come in, and he's not far off the first team anyway. So it's not like you're completely weakening the team by bringing in Brandon Williams. Funnily enough, I know this sounds a bit crackers because we've got like all these different options and whatnot, but I'd be tempted to stick with the same centre-back pairing just because to get them into the routine and get them playing together and get them sort of, getting that understanding which we were questioning against Spurs. I know that might sound a bit perverse because people say, well, you're sort of running them into the ground or whatever, but I do think they need to build that understanding that they had pre-lockdown back up again. So I'm going to stick with Maguire and Lindelof, and I'll stick with Aaron Wan-Bissaka at right back as well, just because I think he can play every day. I don't think he needs resting. I think he always puts in a sort of at least an 8 out of 10, and I think he's a super fit guy, so I don't think it'll be an issue for him to play 2 games in a matter of days. You smirking when I said super fit guy there?
We all think he's a super fit guy, mate. There's nothing wrong with
that. And he's good at football. So I think I'm going to stick with 3 of the back 4 that started against Sheffield United, funnily enough. In the holding midfielders, I think we'll have Fred and McTominay because, as I said before, I'm going to have 2 holding midfielders. Even though I hate it, I think this is what we'll do because I don't see him playing both Bruno and Pogba. So I'm going to go with Fred and McTominay as your 2 holding midfielders. In front of them, it's toss up, but I'm going to go with Bruno just because Pogba hasn't played a lot of football this season. And I think that if anyone needs resting, it's probably him. I thought he played really well against Sheffield United, and obviously he did well when he came on against Spurs. He's looked great since he's come back, but I feel now might be a good time to give him a little bit of a breather because he's played 3 games since September or something stupid, so we don't need to keep hammering him every game. So yeah, I give him a rest. And then for who else am I missing now? That's 4. Hang on a minute, let me work this out. 4, 2, 3.
You need your front 3.
Front 3.
Front 3. Yeah. Thank you. Dan James is going to come in on the right hand side. And I'll stick with Marcus Rashford on the left. I know Anthony Martial's just got a hat trick, but I think as well. I think Marcus will be chomping at the bit because he didn't get a goal and he missed a couple of sitters. I think he'll want to get his first goal back since lockdown, so I think that might be a little bit of something that he wants to fix, and I think he can do that against Norwich. And then I give Ole Gunnar Solskjaer a start because he's not had much game time yet. We brought him in for a reason. This is probably the ideal game for him to start. Give Anthony Martial a rest, a well-earned rest. But you can always have Martial and Pogba on the bench as well. I wouldn't take too many risks, so that if it was 0-0 or 1-0 down or whatever with 20 or 30 minutes to go, you've still got 2 top players you can bring on. But no, that'd be my starting 11 for the trip to Norwich.
Go on, Joe.
Yeah, very nice. I agree with a lot of that, to be honest. Romero, I think, will get a game. He's played in the Cup already this year, and that's his role in the squad, isn't it? So I'd be surprised if he didn't start. I've gone with Dello at right back. Thought he looked good against Tranmere. Obviously got the goal there. And I agree with what you say about Wan-Bissaka. He is a super fit guy, and he's good at football. But I think he should probably just get a rest, just because no matter how fit you are, 3 months off is a tricky thing to come back from. Speaking of 3 months off, I'll go Eric Bailly at centre-back alongside Harry Maguire, who Solskjaer sort of said before, didn't he? And obviously things have changed now, and the schedule and that sort of thing has all changed. But he kind of said Maguire's playing pretty much every match that he's available for. So as you predicted as well, I think Maguire will start. And then I've gone Brandon on the left as well. Good player. Offers a lot going forward. Give Luke Shaw a rest. He's played 180 minutes in the last week, so yeah, give him a break. And then Fred and McTominay as well. That seems almost certain for them to come in now, doesn't it? Matic can have a rest. Neither of them started against Sheffield United. It makes sense. I've gone with Andreas Pereira in front of them. And again, I part of me agrees with you about the Pogba Bruno. One of them should always play thing, but Bruno's played every game since he came in. And I don't think we should risk it, although it wouldn't surprise me if he did start. But I'm going to go Pereira. He seems to be the choice over Lingard. Solskjaer really seems to have just put Lingard on the shelf, doesn't he? And I wouldn't be surprised to see him go at the end of the season. And then a front 3 of Dan James, like you said. And I've gone with Martial and Rashford. I agree that I think Rashford will definitely start. He needs to get a goal under his belt after the restart. He's missed a few decent chances, but he looked a lot sharper against Sheffield United. But I think Igalo, maybe see him off the bench later on or earlier on, depending on what the score is. But we need, in the way that you've sort of reinforced the midfield with Bruno, I've kind of reinforced that front line with Martial. So similar kind of theory, but executed in a slightly different way.
Nice.
I think there'll be a fair few changes when you think about it. Wednesday, Tuesday, the league games. So there's 2 games in less than a week. I think he'll look to give certain players those 2 games and play the majority of those games and try and make as many changes as possible in the Norwich game, because it's not really going to affect things. We've not been playing many games and we're still in pre-season mode. And you can still play, the lads, McTominay, Fred, they played on Friday. So it'd be like 2 games in a week for them as well. If they were to play, I know it's a little bit more, 8 days, but nevertheless. So I think we'll see a fair few changes. Romero in goal. I think, is Delors fit? I think we might see Delors come in for Wan-Bissaka.
As far as I'm aware, he is,
Yeah. I think we'll see Maguire start as a usual start. Bailly coming. Lindelof not getting dropped. I would have dropped him for the Spurs for the Sheffield game, but his performance against Sheffield was very good. So I'm just bringing Bailly in because he needs minutes. On the left, Brandon Williams, McTominay, Fred. I think Bruno might start as well. I think it's a possibility, but I think he might just put him on the bench. So I think Igalo will start. Daniel James will start. Igalo, Daniel James. I think Jesse might get a game to prove something because he wasn't even on the bench against Sheffield United. He was on the bench against Spurs, didn't come on. So I don't know, you might be right, Joe, but I'm trying to think, all right, he hasn't started any of these games. This might be the game where he starts. So Jesse to come in. Jesse, Igalo, James, and Bruno will start, I think. So that's what I've gone with. Fred McTominay. If you got Fred McTominay, Bruno, they started against Spurs, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So Fred McTominay, Bruno started against Spurs. That's a full choice midfield. So it's not like you've made a wholesale change there, even though you kind of have. Then the front 3, James starts quite regularly. Lingard, I'm kind of predicting he'll start, but he might not. Rashford, I can't see him starting. I think Martial, Ali might think, actually, I'll start him and bring, like Joe said, I'll bring Igalo off the bench earlier because Ali knows what a striker that's just scored a hat-trick will feel like. And he'll probably want him to kind of keep that going, maybe get a goal, take him off after 45 minutes or something. So there's kind of that angle to it. But I think Rashford's probably unlikely to play. He played a lot of minutes in both the games, just coming back, and there's a game against Brighton away. So I think there could be a fair few changes. It wouldn't surprise me if Pereira came in for Lingard or someone like that, though. Anyone worried about Norwich? Possibly likely to go. Well, they're likely to go down. Is anyone worried?
No, I think that both times with Norwich, I've almost felt sorry for him. When we played him, because they stick to the guns, don't they? Bless them. They do like to try and play football the right way, but they just don't seem to have the quality to do that. And and part of me just thinks why don't they change the system? Why don't they just try and be a bit more sort of negative or a bit more sort of make it difficult for you instead of trying to play this attractive, expansive football with players that aren't quite up to the job? But they just stick with it. And we've seen it, even when they're getting battered, they still sort of have this ethos that they're not willing to change, which is admirable, but it's not very practical either. And I mean, they've obviously they're struggling at the bottom of the table, but they've still got to make the league the priority. So I don't know what sort of changes they'll make. But even if they were at full strength, and no matter which team out of the 3 we've all chosen, I would still expect any of our starting 11s to be the best starting 11 Norwich can put up, if that makes sense. Because I think, look, whilst they play football the right way and they've got a manager you can admire or whatever, I just don't think they've got the quality there. And I think that they almost got promoted a little bit too soon. I think they had a 5-year plan and they sort of superseded it, went ahead of it and got promoted earlier than they expected. So they didn't make a lot of signings in the summer. They just sort of stuck with a team that they already had and they've been found out, really. So, yeah, I'd be massively surprised if this isn't a comfortable win, especially the form that we're in as well.
They've got Byram, Hanley, and Zimmerman that are out. If that helps anyone.
Not really. I'd be lying if I said I knew much about them. I've never even heard of Zimmerman.
I do. I am a bit worried.
I've heard that name for the wrong reason.
Yeah, I was about to say
different guy.
We don't need.
It's definitely a different guy.
Yeah.
I always worry about when United find ourselves on these long unbeaten runs and how they come to an end and how it plays on the players' minds and all that sort of thing, because you just think you want to be able to almost not care about the result of this sort of game. And I know it's the FA Cup and you should always care, but you should go into a game against Norwich and think we'll beat them either way. But I do worry that there's an added element and an added pressure of 13 unbeaten. Like this is kind of the trophy that we've given ourselves at this stage of the season of look at us, we are showing off this 13 games unbeaten, and at some point that is going to come to an end. And I wonder how that plays on the players' minds and how it will play on people's minds when we lose at whatever point it is. Twitter is going to be horrible. So maybe it's just me worrying that I don't want to see abuse on Twitter.
I think Ali after the game, he was like, yeah, it was great, but there's more to come. So I think he's someone that's kind of flipping it on its head constantly, isn't he?
Yeah, expects more and expects more. I don't worry too much about Norwich as a team. Like you said, Jay, it almost felt a bit men against boys the last couple of times we played against them, but that's not to say they won't pull out a performance like they did against City. I think we talked with Norwich as well. It's almost, like I said, almost admirable that they keep with this style, because I wonder sometimes when teams that are about to get relegated and you've spent all season sitting back, and then the next year you're expected to be one of the best teams in the Championship, it must be difficult just in a pre-season to switch back into let's try and score goals. So I wonder if sticking to their guns like this will prepare them more for the Championship next season and give them a better chance of coming back up more quickly, because we have seen them bounce up and down a little bit more between the leagues than some have. So, it's not necessarily the worst business model, is it? You get a lot of money for getting promoted and then stick to your guns, come back up in 3 years instead of 5 years.
Exactly. You look
at
the
parachute piece.
Yeah, look at the difference between them and like Villa, who spent a lot of money and are looking in trouble as well.
Yeah.
At least they've not sort of put all their eggs in one basket. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that pans out for them.
Score predictions, boys. Are United going through to the semi-finals at Wembley?
I'll go with
confident.
I've got about what I said. I said a comfortable win.
Not all fucking rushing at once.
I'll go with a 3-1 win.
We won 3-1 last time. Martial scored. Remember, he scored that beautiful.
Is that
goal.
what we missed loads of penalties?
Right. Yeah. Let's not talk about.
Rashford missed and Martial missed.
Sun was in their eyes.
I'm going to go 2-0. I reckon another clean sheet. We'll look good defensively against Sheffield United, and I think the defence will be sort of 3/4 of this defence that seems to have developed some kind of solidity in the last few months. So yeah, another clean sheet, 2-0.
I was going to say 2-0, but I'll go 3-0. Another clean sheet. Sergio Romero. This is worrying. We're predicting wins and shit.
I know. God. We're like Mark Lawrence predicted Liverpool scores, aren't we, at this point?
Yeah, do you remember when did he go like 3 seasons?
3 seasons. Draw, probably a win.
Because if it was the last 3 seasons, you'd understand it. When it was probably 3 seasons when Gerard Houllier was in charge. Okay, now.
When Phil Thompson took over due to Houllier health.
Yeah, well, what are you on? Mate, that's some proper scouts. Going back to what you were saying, Joe, about Twitter being horrible if we lose. Twitter's going to be horrible anyway. I'm coming off Twitter soon.
Oh, yeah. Just don't engage.
And it's just, mate, you know what's going to happen, mate, when it's just going to be unbelievable.
You need to consider, do you know those people who are like karate masters and they're not allowed to fight because their hands are considered deadly weapons? Your thumbs are deadly weapons. Just think to yourself, if I tweet these people, I'm going to destroy them. And that technically should be illegal.
What would Joe do? What would Joe do is my new mantra.
Exactly. You won't go too far wrong there. You've already started with a beard. That's
exactly.
What I would do.
I can't grow the hair, so at least I can follow your example on Twitter.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Carry on if you want. I don't know. I don't even know where this conversation went.
No, we're done.
All right, he's not done. It's a shame. You know what I'm pissed off about? Yeah.
Go on.
We should be looking forward to an FA Cup semi-final at Wembley. They're so good. I should have seen Anthony Martial's first ever career hat-trick.
Yeah, you did miss that.
Yeah.
You did see it, though. Yeah. You saw it in stunning HD.
Yeah.
I haven't even got Sky Sports HD. I don't pay extra for Sky Sports HD.
So you saw it in stunning 720p.
Yeah.
Lovely. You'll never forget that.
Oh, I will never.
It's probably for the best anyway, Macca. You would have just been doing fan cams where you were just shouting at everyone about Matt Charles.
Windmilling it. Windmilling it on fan cams. Lads, promote something for yourselves.
Yes, Scotty and Motty podcast. Check it out.
Yeah, and have a look at Stretford Paddock on Twitter and on Facebook and on YouTube and everywhere. And Joe Smith 93 on Twitter. That's me specifically.
Check him out, man.
Yeah.
See how we got the personal plug-in.
Got to do it, ain't you?
Hey, I'm
followers. He only had 12, Joe.
Yeah. And you know, actually, he's got like 1 billion, really, hasn't he? So he's doing all right.
He was a best man. Look where that got him.
he only had 12 mates. He's got plenty of followers. So actually, he's got 12 following and about 1.5 billion followers.
You can't stop
That's
them
what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Except he unfollowed one of them at the end.
Yeah, 11. Following Matt.
Right.
Like
cunt.
Matthew. Yeah. David.
One block. Do you know KFC follows 6 herbs and spices?
Oregano ain't got a Twitter page.
No. Go and check KFC's followers, who they follow, and it's the Spice Girls and a couple of guys called Herb.
That's clever, man. That's decent.
It is pretty good.
Yeah,
other chicken shops are available. Dixie's is probably better as well. Sometimes, depending which one you go to. Some of them, I don't know. I'm not sure about them.
Mr. McKola.
That's how we do. We've got to support the local Dixie's.
Yeah. Chicken, that independent retailer found across the world.
Small businesses. Adam do this bit. Adam
Other small businesses include Nando's,
Listen,
and McDonald's.
Mr. Dixie and his missus are in the back of there slaving, chopping up them pigeons.
If we're on that, can I give a shout out to the local Gregs as well, because they're really struggling.
Yeah.
Remember when they were called Brags? Does anyone remember that? Jay will remember that. He's older than me.
What? Brags?
They used to be called Brags.
I remember Parker Bradburn, but then Greg's just took over, like, all them up.
No, Brags.
Like, Wimpy,
there was a thing called Brags.
Out the window.
Basically, shout out Jewelry Quarter in Birmingham. When I used to catch the bus to school, yeah, there was a Brags by the clock, and now it's a Greg's. Brags turned into Greg's.
Do you think that might just be one specific example rather than a sort of nationwide name change?
I know.
I think it was a nationwide name change.
I know the first ever drive-through in Great Britain was here in Earlham. Here in Earlham, mate, on the map, M44.
We used to have a drive-through chicken shop called Rooster King. Yeah, shout out them. Then they sold it to fucking McDonald's or something like.
Oh man,
why would you do that?
That's how they go. Well, hopefully, thanks to your plug-in, Dixie Chicken, that won't happen to them.
Hopefully, they can hold out as the heavy hand of capitalism swings at them.
Yeah. Good luck, Mr. and Mrs. Dixie. I hope you not make it. Make sure you subscribe to Scotty and Motty and Stretford Paddock and AdamMcKola. Like, comment, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. We'll be back for plenty more content on the weekend. I need to press end broadcast. So let me pretend I'm a professional. One sec. And for now, we're out.